So Kathleen, what do we got planned today?
So we're gonna make bread and butter pickles. These are something I used to love making when I would go into the office and I'd share them with my coworkers. And I wanted to share them with you today because we've been thinking about pickles, and I mean, why not? It's summery season, so we've got our pickling cucumbers right here. We're just gonna slice them up and set them in with a tablespoon and a half of salt and let that sit for an hour and a half. But our other seasonings that we've got to go with them are apple cider vinegar, we got regular white vinegar, and we got some brown sugar in here. Really? You like brown sugar? That's good. And celery seed, mustard seed, whole mustard seed, ground turmeric. Believe it or not, that goes in there too because you need a little bit of a kick. And then we got a small onion here that's going to get sliced up and it's going to go in and sit with all the pickles and everything. And yeah, so we're going to get this started. I'm going to slice up these cucumbers, and you can use a mandolin if you're super fancy, but ain't nobody got time for that. And I'm just going to go ahead and slice these up, dump them in the bowl, let them chill out for an hour and a half with that salt, and the pickling process can start. And these are just basic fridge pickles. They're not anything super duper fancy. So the pickles are going to be about that big. So it's thin, but it's not like paper thin. It's probably about 2 shoe length, or shoelaces, or shoelace if you want, for any kind of comparison. And like I said, they don't have to be perfect. And these are great for sharing with your friends or your family. You could even do this for like Christmas presents and give the jars out as gifts. Here, take a jar. And then these are like my all-time favorite pickle to do. Now, I've done other pickles, and you can get just pickling spice at the store too, and you can use that. But I actually discovered the pickling spice that you can get at the store. That's a really good alternative if your corned beef and hash or corned beef cabbage doesn't come with the pickling spice. You can use that as your seasoning for the corned beef, and it almost came out better, we found this year. So
oh yeah,
who knew?
Yeah, I remember that.
I know, like, who would have thought? It's pickling spice, but we're short on time. It was like a couple of hours before everybody was supposed to show up. And surprise, there was no pickling spice. Now again, doing the small pieces right on the edge, you're going to want to make that claw shape with your hand. Yeah, run away, run away.
That way you can demonstrate that claw technique.
Thanks. The one thing I will say about these is that there is definitely the brown sugar that's going into them. So it's not like they're the healthiest thing, but they're definitely worth it. And it's not like you're going to be eating the whole jar, unless you're me. All right, on to the second package. Alright, that's all she wrote. We're gonna do a tablespoon and a half of salt. And for this, we are not going to just measure in our hand. And the way that I like to do tablespoon and a half is use a half tablespoon measure. So we've got 1, 3, there we are. So we're just gonna give this a good stir. Make sure the salt is incorporated for the majority. And we're just gonna let this sit out. And the salt's gonna pull out a lot of the moisture from the cucumbers. And even though they're gonna be sitting in vinegar, this begins the pickling process. And we're just gonna rinse the salt off, because if you don't, then you're gonna have nasty cucumbers chilling in juice. And then we'll rinse them off. We'll get the rest of the brew started for the cucumbers. And we'll be back in about an hour and a half, so see you then. All right, so hour and a half is up, and we're just gonna be draining or rinsing the salt from the pickles. And you can see all the water that's come out of these things. There we are. And there we go. We don't need this bowl again, so I'm just leave that there. And you'll want to rinse these in cold water. Doesn't have to be perfect, but enough so that you're trying to hit all pickles or cucumbers still. And you know what? For good measure, let's reuse this so we don't make a mess on the counter. There. Alright, so up next we're going to be making our little brew mixture for the pickles to go into the jars. And for that, we're going to have to reference the recipe real quick. So we've got the half cup of cider vinegar and and 1 cup white vinegar. So our cider vinegar and our white vinegar. Thanks much. Magic hands. And I probably shouldn't put that away. And what did I say? Oh, half cup. Ah, so I would have had just enough. Didn't have to get more, but glad that I did. And then this is gonna go on the stove. And don't mind the messy stove. So we've got the half cup and the full cup of vinegar.
So what's with the different type of vinegars?
You get the blend of sweet with the bitter. I would think. I never really gave it any thought. So I'm gonna put that on medium for right now because we don't want it to boil over too much. We want it to start to get going because we've got our other components to build in, which are the brown sugar, and that's gonna be 1/4 cup. And the seasonings of the yellow mustard, turmeric, and celery seed, and a teaspoon and a half of the mustard seed, Could you hand me the recipe too, please? Thanks. Oh, okay. You want to hold it? And we need a teaspoon, half a teaspoon of celery seed. And this stuff is pretty potent, so you really do only need the exact, oh man, half teaspoon. And the turmeric will be 1/8 of a teaspoon. That's why we have multiple sets of measuring spoons.
You want to do like half of that?
Okay. There we are. Let's plop that right in there. And then we'll give it a quick stir. Just to make sure that everybody is dissolved. All right, that looks good enough for now. And we'll let that bring to a boil. Now, since we're going to be using the whole onion, we can just take the whole thing off. Alright, so we're just going to slice these into rings, or half rings actually. And they don't have to be ridiculously thin. Because you want them to pickle a little bit, and you want to try to be, with this you want to try to be as even as possible. At least I try to be. Really? Tell us a story. Oh, cool. Nice story. I know that last bit's going to be kind of hard, so what I did was I slid the knife in a little bit and then just prop it back up and go right through. And voila! There we are. So we've got our onion ready. And, oh, is there granulated sugar in this too? That's why there's so much sugar. There's a cup of granulated sugar. Good job. You probably would have tasted this later and said, something's missing. Oh, and we've got some boiling action going on. Let's turn this down a little bit. And there we are. Alright, so we'll bring this to another little boil just to make sure that the second bit of sugar is dissolved. Turn that back up to, let's say, medium for now. Put these things away, and then we will be back in a moment. Alright, so we've cleaned up a little bit, and we're going to get together our pickles, our cucumbers. We're going to put them in our jars with the onions and our mixture, and then that's going to stand for about an hour. So it'll just hang out on the counter again. it's gonna just sit uncovered, and then it'll go into the fridge for about 24 hours. You know, it's really tough to wait that long, but you gotta have some patience. So thanks for sticking in and getting to this part of the video, because this is the final step of the pickling. So we're just gonna try to evenly pack in these onions.
So what do you think the onions serve for? And they're just flavoring?
Mm-hmm. Flavoring and texture difference. I like pickled onions. I also like and if you don't have mason jars like this, they are readily purchasable, or they're available at like Michael's or Joann Fabrics. That's where I got a ton of mine. I got them actually specifically for pickling.
I thought you got them for a wedding.
No, they just ended up doubling for the wedding.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh.
I ended up being able to use them for that. So there's our onions. And let's bring these over for cucumbers. And they don't have to be these giant things either. If you have smaller ones, a bunch of little smaller ones, or even the wide mouth jars, those are my favorite. Those are the ones that we use for the overnight oats. And those are traditionally pickle jars, but I like bigger ones. That way you don't have so many little things in the fridge, unless you're doing these as gifts again. Alright, so we've got our pickling liquid. And the funnel is super handy for this task, because otherwise you're going to be making a huge mess. Does that look right?
Well, the recipe says 4 cups of pickles.
Okay, so what do you think I did?
Oh, yeah, you're a little shy because you got like 2 pounds. You got like a extra ½ pound of pickles.
Oh.
And the recipe calls for.
Oh, okay. So I need to make a little bit extra
Yeah.
of this. Shoot. Okay, so we're gonna make some more pickling liquid. You know, takes like 2 seconds, so that's fine. Let's do this. Alright, so we're doing extra half portion of the pickling juice. So we've got 1/4 cup of the apple cider vinegar and half cup of the white vinegar.
Yeah, we're improvising.
Yeah.
Something you have to do when you're cooking.
Yeah. Especially when you don't realize that you have too much of a good thing of cucumbers. So for the sugars, we need extra ½ cup of the white sugar, and the brown sugar is going to be 1/8 cup, I think, because it was 1/4 cup. Was it not?
I believe so.
Okay.
It's ½ cup.
And then the 1/4 cup. Alright, so an 1/8 of a cup of the brown sugar. And a 1/4 cup or a 1/2 cup of the granulated sugar. Alright, and measurements.
I would just guesstimate them since you're halving it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna guesstimate them.
The celery seeds, you're supposed to put in a 1/4 teaspoon. Mustard seeds.
Oh, hold on. So a 1/4 teaspoon of the celery seed. It's gonna be about that. Mustard seed. About the same, I think it was. Or a little bit more.
Mustard seeds was 1.5 teaspoons, so like 3/4 of a teaspoon is what you need.
I'd say about that.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. And the turmeric. I'm just gonna do a few dashes of that. There. Let's just crank that up to high. Make sure everybody's dissolved in here.
I'd say that's boiling right there.
Mm-hmm. All right, so everybody's boiling and happy.
Looks good.
Looks good, looks good. Alrighty, back to our little setup here. Good enough, good enough. So, we'll let these sit out for about an hour so that they can cool off properly. And then after that, they'll go and live in the fridge for at least a day. Hopefully we can wait that long. And then we'll be back and we'll check on our pickles tomorrow. And we'll be able to feast on them and not eat too many because, you know, you get a tummy ache from that. So we'll see you again in a wee bit. Do you want to put them, see what they look like in an hour? And then we'll be back in about an hour. All right, so it's been about an hour, maybe a little bit more. And these have cooled off for the most part. So you can see that the cucumbers have started to break down in the pickle juice. And then we're just gonna lid these. And they'll go in the fridge for about 24 hours. Knowing me, I'll probably take them out and sneak a peek in the morning, but that's just because I'm a little too excited. So you can shake them up if you want. Make sure the juice gets all over. Everybody is happy in there, and then we'll be back tomorrow with pickles right from the fridge. So we'll see you then. Alright, so it's been about 24 hours, give or take. See, change clothes here. Oh. So we've got our pickles that are pickled, and we're gonna go ahead and give these a taste. So pull out our trusty tasting fork, and just gonna dive right in. Oh my gosh. So nice and crunchy. And if you like bread and butter pickles, this is definitely a great recipe to try. A little sweet, a little tangy. You got the bite from the cider vinegar, and there's like a little hint of the turmeric, but it's not like a whole lot, but you get that little bit of punch. And I just need to go in and take one of the onions. Oh, that's still got some nice crunch to it. Now after time, if you have these sit in the fridge for a little while, say you forget about them or something, God forbid, they do get a little soggy, but it's not like it's going to be overly like, ugh, I don't want to eat these, they're nasty. Because, you know, these don't have preservatives, It's not like when you buy Clausen's or Vlasics, not sponsored, at the store. You buy a store-bought pickle that's going to have all the preservatives in it. This doesn't have any preservatives, just like the bread. You're gonna have to eat it a little bit quicker, but it's not gonna break down and become all gross and super soggy. They're still gonna keep their shape, and that's why I like to do them a little bit thicker like this, so that they do keep their shape. Because if you do them that really paper thin, they are gonna get floppy and sad looking. And you know, when you go to a restaurant and you get that sad floppy pickle on your burger, you just don't want to eat it, and that's when you're tempted to take it off. You have a good, healthy, chunky pickle like this, it's gonna keep that crunch that you want. So definitely try these out, please, because I really want to eat this whole jar right now. I'm starving. And so like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications, and we'll see you next time.